I'm doing it.
How are you settling into the energy ministry?
I'm tough, but we're managing.
And let me start with yesterday, the committee that submitted its report. First of all, tell us about what that committee was supposed to do.
Well, on assumption office, my attention was drawn to some containers stuck at the ports. And so I visited the port myself with ECG. Another time, they had indicated that they had about 3,000 or so containers stuck at the port. And those containers were incurring huge demurrage. I felt alarmed. How could a company allow all these containers stuck at the port? So I set up a committee to look at how, one, we can clear them, but also determine why we even...
Oh, we'll get the Honorable Minister back on the line and continue the conversation. So he's talking about the fact that when he came into office, he was confronted with the matter of course, he's spoken consistently about the matter of the containers at the ports. So he wanted to look into it. How many containers were at the ports? How will it be cleared? And so we'll call him so that he continues and we'll get a clear understanding of exactly what this committee was supposed to do, what they found so far, and what he intends to do about it. Honorable, sorry we lost you on the line. You were telling us about the background to the work of this committee.
Yes, so we wanted to determine circumstances leading to about 3,000 containers stuck at the port. And at that time, the demurrage alone was about 1.5 billion. So I set up the committee and also to look at other procurement-related matters. So yesterday, when they presented the report, it turned out that though ECG officially has a record of about 2,500 containers at the port, when they took the actual inventory, about 1,300 containers could not be accounted for. I mean, that was very, very alarming. And so what we're going to do is to launch a criminal investigation to determine the whereabouts of those containers, the people or companies behind those containers, and to prosecute them before a competent court.
Over 2,500 containers, you have 1,300 that you do not know where they are.
Yes. They could not determine the whereabouts of those containers. And that's quite alarming. I mean, first of all, you shouldn't even have those containers stuck at the port. Because if you see clearly, some of the containers, they couldn't clear them. And yet they were ordering the same item and compounding the situation.
Ordering the same items in those containers that were stuck at the ports?
Absolutely. So you have container at the harbor, cables are stuck there, and yet you are ordering the same cables that you are unable to clear at the ports. And when they gave the contract to some private people, they were able to find the money for those private people. I mean, that was very, very disturbing.
And you said at this point you have no choice but to launch a criminal investigation into the matter.
Absolutely.
And the intention is to find those containers and who are behind it?
Yes, to find the whereabouts of those containers, who are behind the clearing or stealing of those containers, and put them through due process. I'd also seek to retrieve the monetary value of those containers.
I see. That's quite interesting. So these containers, do you know what they all contained?
Some of them contain meters, some contain cables, some contain stay equipment, various consumables, and they are very expensive. A container could cost between $300,000 to $500,000. That's $500,000. And so your guess is as good as mine. I mean, we can't allow this to continue. We simply cannot allow that. And all that affects power delivery. Because beyond the generation, you need these materials in order to stabilize the grid and the distribution sector. So that even when you generate, you can evacuate and distribute the power and ensure reliable supply of power. Yesterday, for instance, we had a slight hitch because Talo had to shut down for unpaid bills. And yet you are using these monies that you have used to pay companies like Talo for all this avoidable expenditure. We've had to cough up money on an emergency basis to bring Talo back online. So clearly, somebody is milking the state, and we can't sit and allow that to continue.
Are you able to tell the time period within which these containers arrived in the country? Because you're talking about a bill of 1.5 billion in demurrages alone, and I guess that has been climbing.
Yeah, the majority of them happened between 2023 and 2024. But this came up during the transition.
2023 and 2024.
Absolutely.
Wow. So what do you do to the rest of the containers that you've been able to find?
Okay, so what we're doing is we're working with national security to evacuate all those containers into a safe warehouse. We have a new warehouse, so I'll be sitting with ECG, but I'm also very cautious. What I don't want is, in the process of salvaging the remaining containers, you have the containers missing again. And if we don't put in place stringent measures, you are likely to experience that situation. Because the intelligence I'm picking is that some people, under the guise of either clearing the containers or securing the containers, end up stealing the containers themselves. And I don't want any scandal on my hands. So we want to work with national security, with ECG, with the ministry, and then with the office of the president, so that we have serial numbers of all these containers, proper stock taking, put an efficient transportation system, and also provide adequate security in respect of where the containers would finally be landed.
And to do this, you need to pay half of 1.5 billion. Do you have that money?
No, we don't. So we may have to negotiate some payment terms with the port authorities and see how we can handle it. It's something we inherited, and so we have to find a way around it. It's quite unfortunate.
And did the committee give you any answers as to within which time period over 1,300 containers were moved? Because that's a lot of containers.
They didn't even know the containers were moved. And we didn't even know the containers were moved. Because all along we knew that we had about 2,500. So their work was how we can move the 2,500 containers. Only for them to realize that, contrary to the records, over 1,300 of these containers have already been stolen.
I see. And you said they were also to look into procurement breaches. And what did the procurement breaches relate to?
They reported very, very serious procurement breaches. First of all, I think in 2003, yes, that's it. ECG decided that they will merge the procurement directorate, which was a fully established directorate, with the estate and premises department. And then they kicked away the procurement director, who had all the necessary qualifications, and put the estate manager in charge of procurement. And
hello, Nobo. Oh, we've lost him again. Now, he was talking about some structural issues. In fact, because now that we have him on the line, we want to address as many issues as possible, because the energy sector is a big sector when it comes to how this government survives. Majority of the debt that they have to deal with are debt that is within the energy sector. And there are many problems when it comes to the electricity company of Ghana, its efficiency, and how that is improved. Abo, sorry, once again, we lost you once again. Yeah.
They decided to merge the two, estate and procurement, and put the estate manager with no experience or no qualification and training in procurement. So that's very, very, very worrying. Then they said they don't have money to clear the containers, and yet they were able to give a private company money to so-called clear the containers. They don't follow the right procurement processes.
0.5.
Serious breaches, procuring items that they do not need. The board approved their procurement plan. They ended up procuring more than 700% the value of what the board approved. And so everything there, if you listen and you read the report, shows that there were serious breaches. And that will be taken up with the Attorney General.
How do you approach all this? Because you're talking about a company that has been run in this manner for many years. Now you have to take this over, not only be responsible and now be responsible for the liabilities created by these kind of actions. What's your approach that you are asking of the new board, the new head of the ECG? What do you want exactly? How do you want him to approach this?
Today, I'm writing to ECG to immediately decouple the procurement department from the estate department and to recruit a competent, qualified, experienced procurement personnel to man the procurement unit. Secondly, I would demand monthly update through the board on all their procurements and match that against what was approved. So you can't procure 700% over and above what the board approved for you. So these two will be done immediately. That ought to be done immediately. At least that will stop the bleeding. I trust the current MD. He's a man with a lot of dignity, and I'm sure that he will do a good job. Then the items they've procured, if we realize that some of them, they do not need them and would expire soon, we can use them for re-electrification. So people need electricity, they are complaining, and we need to utilize those materials. So these are some of the things we intend to do immediately. The ECG must learn to stay within budget, and also we have to review even the limit of the MD. The limit of up to 1, and they decided.
Well, today our phone lines are not being very, very helpful to us. I think that what we'll do is my producer will try one more time, and perhaps. But our guest in studio this morning is also Deputy Majority Leader. The Deputy Majority Leader will be joining us in studio. He's a man who worked at the Ministry for Finance as Deputy Minister, also Deputy Minister at the Ministry of Trade. Those two places. He was there and will join us in studio because yesterday they concluded the debate on the budget. Honorable Kweku George Sagan will join us in studio for a conversation on many issues from Parliament all the way through to the budget and running this country in the midst of the difficulties we are confronted with. I just want to wrap up with Honorable John Jinapor and move on and have further conversations on this. Our producer is able to get him on the line once again to continue this conversation. We're talking about the Electricity Company of Ghana, if you're just joining us. And the report of this committee, the committee says over 1,300 containers were missing at the Tema port. But they have 2,500. So the committee chairman said they were given a list of containers that the ECG had at the port. On the list, they have over 2,500. When they did their check at the Jinapor, they realized that there was about close to 1,300 missing, or a little more than 1,300 missing. So they couldn't account for that. They could not account for those numbers of containers that were actually missing. The minister says this has now become a criminal matter. So he'll report it to the necessary agencies to carry out a criminal investigation into the matter. In the meantime, he's working with national security to transfer the containers from where they are being held currently to a safer place, so they've designated a new warehouse that they believe is safer for the containers. They'll move the containers to that warehouse and they will be held there. But in the meantime, the investigations will continue. Honorable is also talking about some procurement challenges that we are confronted, ECG is confronted with. Is that all this started with one simple move? The ECG at some point decided that they were going to merge the procurement directorate with the estates and premises directorates of ECG. And that's quite interesting. And when they did that, they did not put the procurement man in charge. They sacked the procurement man and kept in office the estate man to head the new directorate, merged directorate. Honorable, thank you very much for the time once again. And sorry we keep losing you on the line. Our lines are just not being friendly to us this morning. Honorable, can you hear me? Hello, Honorable, can you hear me? Hello? Hello, Honorable, can you hear me? Hello? Oh. Hello, Honorable? Well, we do have a challenge that, okay, so I guess we can leave it here. We'll find some other time and have a much more extended conversation with Honorable, but we will try.